Thursday, October 27th, 2022. We have the Thursday night game going on. My name's Josh. That's Jeff. That's Landon. This is Fantasy Inception. All right. We are approaching Halloween, and today we had some special tricks and treats. So we're going to talk about the news first, and then we're going to get into a very long explanation of a game that we're going to play. Guys, let's start with the good news. Toney gets traded to the Chiefs. Give me your fantasy take on it. Jeff.
Immediate. I don't see any value in this trade for the Chiefs. You know, given the injury history and where he's been kind of all season, I don't think they're going to get much out of him through the rest of this year or for kind of our single season fantasy schedule. But in terms of like a dynasty league, I think that has really good value and potential value if the man can get healthy. But that being said, as I was telling you guys earlier, like I don't know why Kansas City would make this trade given like obviously the Giants have trainers, personnel that have reviewed him, assessed him. He's clearly not fit to play football at this point, so he's not even like doing anything. So what all of a sudden makes Kansas City believe that they're going to get this guy healthy and back on the field? Like, are their trainers magical healers? Can they?
Well, did you see he's already
do the Mr. Miyagi thing and just touch him and all of a sudden he's ready to go?
Shortly after the trade, he I don't know if it was a tweet or what it was, but he has announced that he is 100%.
He's good to go.
Yeah. Landon, do you think Kansas City overpaid with a third and a sixth, I believe?
No, I don't think so. I just it's an interesting move. Obviously, I think I like all like the memes or the videos that you see with like Toney pulling up with like a broken leg and then he just rips the cast off when he gets to Kansas City or something like that.
Oh, that's great.
I mean, the regime in New York, they didn't want him seemingly. It wasn't their pick and the new head coach and the GM. So he was not destined to be there, and who knows what was happening behind the scenes, if he could have played, if he just didn't want to play. And then Kansas City made the moves with Kelsey's contract to make some room. So I can't imagine that they would have traded for a player that wasn't going to play for them. I think, I don't know. It's interesting. I did pick him up in my other league. So what we saw on the field from him last year was, I mean, he was amazing when he played. So it's just the
one game he was amazing. One game.
One game he was great. But
he started the next game off on fire as well.
Yeah, he did, and then he went out in the second quarter, I think, or something.
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, the big thing obviously is health with him, but like pair him up with Patrick Mahomes, and they still don't have. I mean, Juju's had a good 2 games, but is he really a number one wide receiver? I think just the potential.
He's also on a 1-year deal, so it could be like you're saying, Jeff. It could be that this year is gravy, and then next year is, they don't bring Juju back, and he's their number one. So Landon, for viewers, Landon was a little upset because I picked up Toney in our Clowntown League before Schechter tweeted about it because he wasn't the one who released it. And then picked him up everywhere else, so that was fun. Let's talk about Chase. Injured 4 to 6 weeks. I can't remember what the actual hip. No, what was it?
Yeah.
Hip? Landon, Chase is on your team. Devastating. How are you going to overcome?
I don't know how you can. I mean, he's just been on such a tear lately. He's a top-tier wide receiver. I put Darnell Mooney in my lineup instead of Jamar Chase. I mean, that's a huge drop-off. So
does this make you have been unwilling to put an IR spot in our league for some time now? Is this going to change next year? I think that the managers want it.
I definitely think we might we'll address that in the offseason. It can't hurt to have one IR
when
spot.
The podcast isn't on.
But yeah, I don't know how my team can. I mean, that's just a huge blow.
Jeff, how does this impact Higgins, Boyd, Mixon?
Yeah, I mean, I think skyrocket to the moon value there. I mean, Higgins especially.
Mhm.
I mean, I guess, we've seen it a little bit with these two. Like the reason why these guys have had so much success is kind of like feeding off of one another. So when one has kind of a down game, the other one is having kind of that big game, if you will, and then it goes kind of back and forth with those two. So it will be interesting to see how this plays out. I do believe that Joe Mixon is probably going to get a lot more love down the back half of this football season, and even though he's already had so many touches as it is, so. But that being said, I look for him to maybe get more involved than he already is today. So that's kind of my thoughts on how this will play out.
And Boyd, we saw him have an unbelievable game last week. A lot of it was when Chase was out, not all of it though. So I think he becomes a huge help to the teams that have him as well. This was the one in which
Mike Evans, big catch, over 40 yards for sure. Yeah, maybe 60.
Only when Godwin does anything.
Okay. He just headbutted Mike Evans to say nice
so
catch.
I go on Reddit
You don't
a
get
bunch,
points for
and
that.
on Reddit, on the fantasy football subreddit, about 3 or 4 hours before the announcement, there was a poster who said, "Take this for what you will, but my cousin's friend works at a hospital in Cincinnati, and they say that Jamar Chase just came in, and Cincinnati is going to announce that he is out for the season later today." So Reddit normally removes those posts very quickly, and so within about 10 minutes, that guy was removed.
Oh my gosh.
I attempted everywhere to get Higgins before the Chase thing was announced, because this happened last year with Carson. With Chris Carson, someone came on and said, "My buddy is a trainer, and this is the news that he gave us." And then about 3 or 4 hours after, when it was actually announced, everybody was basically, yelling at the moderator that they have to, because what they do is they remove the post, but then they ban the person for just spreading gossip. And so everyone was saying, "You got to unban this guy. You got to," and so now he's like,
we need to know. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But pretty unbelievable. All right. So we are going to change things up a little bit. Normally we do pick 'em towards the later end of the show. We have 2 players who's going to do better in fantasy. We have a bunch of those, and whoever chooses the least amount of correct answers loses, faces a penalty. Jeff, as is tradition, is the loser this week. But I have ADD, so I get bored super easily, and we're going to change this game. What we're going to do is a rank 'em game. I'm going to have 5 QBs, 5 receivers, and 5 running backs each week that we are going to rank 1 through 5. How are they going to do that week in fantasy? We are going to open this up to our viewers as well. I'll get into that in a second. The way this is going to work is, as I was doing this, I was trying to figure out, well, how do you rank this, or how do you score this to be able to say one of us is better than the other? And it turns out it's impossible. There's no perfect way. So the way that we're going to do it is flawed, but hopefully is not too flawed. The best way to describe this is just an example. So we are going to do 5 QBs that we'll get into in a little bit. 2 of those are Andy Dalton and Geno Smith. So hypothetically, if you said Andy Dalton's going to get the most points out of those 5, I'm going to rank him first, and Geno is going to get the second most. And then Geno ends up, in reality, getting first, and Andy Dalton gets second. Well, you correctly predicted that Andy Dalton was going to do better than the 3 people under him, so you're going to get 1 point for each of those 3. You also correctly predicted that Geno was going to do better than 2 people, I believe. 3 people under him. So I'm off on the numbers. Anyways, you get the point. And so you're going to get points for that. So every player that that your choice does better than that player, you get a point for that. And then if you choose the person who finishes 5th correctly, you'll get a point for that as well. We are going to open it to the public, and this is the way it's going to work. When we post this video on YouTube, our producer, Chris Rowlands, is going to put the 5 QBs, 5 running backs, and 5 receivers that we will be ranking next week. If you want to participate in this, you should rank those 15 players in QB, running back, wide receiver, and you can either send us your ranks at fantasyinception@gmail.com or comment in the video with your ranks. You have to do that by Thursday night. That is when we usually record this podcast and when we will be ranking them. So you have to email us or comment with your rankings by Thursday night. If you participate, you are subject to the penalty. We're going to stick with the board of penalties. So whoever does the worst, whether it's a viewer or one of us, across all three categories, whoever does worse, the following week, they will have to come on the show and do a penalty from the penalty board. There is a plus to participating.
Yeah,
if you win each week, we will give you a shout out. And then we are going to do this for probably the remainder of the regular season, fantasy football regular season. If you are, and we will aggregate the score, so we'll keep track over all of the weeks. If you have the best score at the end, and you are a viewer, and you beat out all of the other viewers, all three of them, and the three of us, then you will get to choose one of us to replace for a special episode after the fantasy football playoffs are done. So you will come on, and you could replace myself and host this, and do all the questions. Jeff or Landon, and you will be part of the podcast for a full episode. So that is the reward. That is the tease. All right, let's get into this. This week, obviously, no participation from the public, and we won't count it. But we're going to start with our QBs.
I blacked out. What happened?
Yeah, this is crazy.
I
always have one as
long
a guest. I
explanation.
can't lose my job over this.
Yeah, there's no compensation if you guest host, by the way. You actually have to pay for the recording.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to start off with the 5 QBs. We have Justin Fields at Dallas, Andy Dalton versus Vegas, Carr at New Orleans, Trevor Lawrence against Denver, and Geno Smith versus the Giants. Who wants to give us their ranking first, and maybe a little summary of why they ranked those players in the place that they did? Jeff, I feel like you need to talk. Do you want to go first?
I'll go. All right.
Okay.
Got Derek Carr going against New Orleans this week. I'm banking that Lattimore he's not practicing today. I'm banking that he's going to still continue to remain out, in which case I think Devontae Adams just goes bananas in this matchup. So Derek Carr, number 1. I hate that I'm putting this guy here, but it's a great matchup. Andy Dalton is number 2. Las Vegas is very weak. He was obviously announced as the QB1 to start moving forward over Jameis, who's now healthy. So give me some Andy Dalton, I guess, as number 2 there. Geno Smith is number 3. Tough matchup going against the Giants. They also, no DK, so what do? They'll probably look to bracket coverage, lock it, or maybe even double team him a little bit. So taking away, really, I think, his primary option there. And really, they've been just so successful on the ground here lately as well with Walker that it scares me a little bit to have him there, but I do like him better than these last 2 guys. Justin Fields, number 4. Okay. Looked great against New England, and I kind of feel a little bit like maybe the Bears learned that they just need to get this guy involved a little bit, slowly ease him into the game, right? Don't ask him to do too much too soon or anything like that in the game. So just slowly kind of ease him into the game, let him get his confidence going a little bit, and see where it kind of takes you. But their run game has been outstanding. So, but we'll get into that in the running back piece. And then finally, I got Trevor Lawrence there as number 5 going against a tough Denver matchup.
Landon, how similar is your ranking?
It's the same exact.
No way.
It is.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, I was toying with Lawrence and Fields there, but
Yeah.
I did put Fields ahead of Lawrence. Just Lawrence going to London against Denver, so I put him last. But yeah, I don't. Geoff, he summed it up really, really well. I don't have many other comments, and it's unfortunate that we have the same order.
You're a loser.
Well, that's boring. All right. Well, hopefully you guys differ on running backs and wide receivers. Mine is similar, but not totally. So I have Dalton against Vegas, who gives up the most points to QB. They are number 1.
Ooh.
Carr against New Orleans. Same reasons that you called out Jeff. My biggest concern is that Jacobs, they've just been riding him nonstop, and Devontae's missed two straight practices with a bad flu, and I assume he's going to play, but that could still impact how well.
It's not COVID. They have ruled that out. They said so.
Yeah, no, but we've all been sick. I mean, it takes time to recover, and these guys aren't super.
Not these guys. So. They give them.
Trevor Lawrence, I have as third. Denver Denver defense is great, and I may have been just tricking myself into ranking him third. But when you go and you look at Denver D I think has given up the second fewest fantasy points to QBs. And I should say, in case anybody who's watching is not in our league, when we rank them, we're doing 0.5-point PPR, 4-point passing touchdowns, 6-point rushing touchdowns. When you look at the QBs that Denver has played, it is the bottom of the barrel. So they are a great defense, but they have played Geno in week 1, Davis Mills, Jimmy G the week after he took over, Carr, Matt Ryan, Herbert was the only legit one, and Zach Wilson. Not to say they're not amazing, but I think that second fewest is maybe just a little bit of a red herring. And then I have Geno fourth because of the Metcalf concerns, and then Fields against Dallas. Dallas is just beastly. So, we'll see there. Let's go on to running backs. The running backs we are ranking are Najee at the Eagles, Miles Sanders versus Pittsburgh, Henderson versus San Fran, Montgomery at Dallas, as Jeff alluded to earlier, and then Singletary versus Green Bay. Landon, you want to start us off? Did you fall asleep?
No, I'm just doing some research on my phone. I'm sorry. All right, so
putting together his lineup right now.
Yeah, pretty much. Didn't have much time today. All right, so first I went with Miles Sanders against Pittsburgh. Second, Devin Singletary against Green Bay. Green Bay's not great against. Well, I mean, Pittsburgh's not great either against the run, but Green Bay's has not been good either, and Buffalo can put up some points. Then I went Najee. This was what I was little kind of.
Guy you hate, according to last week. He's terrible, you said.
I do not like Najee.
Terrible. Hate him.
It's just
trash.
The other two.
Like you hate Jonathan Taylor?
Jonathan Taylor's the worst.
I would take that guy in a second on my team. Give me that. Another championship, JT. Let's go.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't like Najee. He's been extremely disappointing this year, arguably the biggest bust of the season. But just the other guys, I mean, Montgomery going against Dallas, who is one of the best.
Is Montgomery fourth then?
Montgomery is fourth, I have.
Okay.
But going against a really tough Dallas defense, they're second best against the run. And then last but not least is Darrell Henderson, who's got another tough matchup as well, and their offensive line is just absolutely brutal. So that's my
no Cam Akers though. He's the guy.
Jeff, tell me it's the same that you have.
Landon. I mean, I sent him over my notes earlier. I said you may borrow my notes, but don't plagiarize, copy word for word, and clearly
he did this in high school as well.
Yeah, yep. This is how he got through high school. So
pretty much.
Mine differs a little bit. I do have Sanders at the top, facing Pittsburgh, like Landon said. We got Montgomery, those seconds. I know it's going against Dallas, but I don't know if you know this. Chicago has the number one best in the league outside zone blocking scheme, and they are running the ball more effective than anybody else in that scheme. So I do think that they're going to have to lean heavily on their horses here if they're going to keep this game close. It's kind of a little bit like we talked about last week. These teams, if they want to beat these higher teams, they're going to have to run the ball, kill the clock, and hopefully try to keep the game close. So give me Montgomery in this one. I got Singletary next going against the weak Green Bay rushing defense. I got Henderson next because of no Akers. He's possibly getting traded. So the Rams are going to hold him out this week, it sounds like, and see if anybody bites. But I like him as the primary back, even though it's a tough San Francisco D. And then I got Najee last.
Okay. Mine is just flipping your 1 and 2, Singletary first and then Sanders. I think for these guys, it was for all
I
three
had
of us.
Montgomery too, but I'd say.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Three.
I'm sorry.
That's
All right,
okay.
so I take it back.
Yep.
I think my thinking was more I don't like any of the others more than I like
It
seeing
was
third.
tough.
I think they're just very
tough names.
consistent. They're both going to get you like 10 to 12 points. So there's no upside with them. Najee, I have third for a similar reason, just less points. He's going to get you like 9 points, 10 points
11
per game.
points.
Henderson, I have fourth for the reasons that you mentioned. Their O-line is terrible, and San Fran plays them very well. And then I have Montgomery last.
Oh.
I agree with everything you said, Jeff. My biggest concern is Dallas's D combined with Herbert. I don't think they're going, it's not going to be Herbert's backfield, but I would assume it's Montgomery's 60%, maybe 55%. And so if Montgomery doesn't get that touchdown and against Dallas's defense, I don't think he's getting the receptions. So I think he's going to be a low point getter. And that has nothing to do with the fact that I might have to start Herbert in our league. Wide receivers. We have Lockett versus the Giants, Pittman versus Washington, Devonta Smith versus Pittsburgh, Thielen versus Arizona, and Wan'Dale Robinson at Seattle. Jeff, you want to start us off?
Oh, you go first.
Yeah, you go. Host.
This is the one in which I have less research and analysis than for the other ones. All right, I went with Devonta Smith just because it's a bet on talent in that offense, just putting up points against Pittsburgh. Pittman, I have number 2. Again, talent I think is there, but they have a new QB who is run first, and there's risk there that he just doesn't get any the volume that he was at least getting with Matt Ryan. Wan'Dale, I have third. Nothing changes with Kadarius not playing there. He wasn't playing beforehand. I think his snap count continues to go up. But we haven't seen it as much as the other two guys. Lockett, I have fourth. Concern just being with DK out. That
Duvernay
defenses can
touchdown.
focus on him.
Ooh, Lamar
This
lighting it
helps
up.
me.
No, it was a run.
None.
He ran it in. It was a.
This is just Thursday Night Football is the worst.
Sorry.
Amazon Prime just paid for a pile of shit every Thursday. It is garbage.
Sorry to interrupt. I didn't mean to. I thought you.
No, it's okay. It just makes me angry. And then I have Thielen last. He's going against Arizona's D, which their receiver D hasn't played bad at all, and he's just touchdown dependent, so he could very easily have 2 points. Who wants to go next?
Yeah, I'll take it from here. Yep.
Yeah.
All right, so I got Wan'Dale Robinson first.
I knew you would. You love him.
I do. I'm all over this guy.
Is it because you have him on Dynasty?
I do have him in Dynasty. I'm excited about that. I'm excited to see the future now without somebody riding his.
Are you concerned that he's like
be in the
5'2"?
background? Nope, not
He's
at
a
all.
teeny man.
Not at all. Not at all, man. The guy has skills, can ball, and he's got a good matchup here going against Kobe Bryant. So give me a little Wan'Dale Robinson against Seattle there. Got Pittman is my number 2. All right. Obviously you got the new QB, which is a bit of a downgrade, but
Maybe.
it's tough. It's a good matchup, but I do believe that this is a bit of a downgrade as far as the quarterback goes. But hopefully he's looking in the middle of the field where Pittman's playing out the slot, and he'll find him to go off a little bit. Devonta Smith, I'm a little worried that they get up so big in the first half against Pittsburgh that this team just runs the ball in the second half, kills the clock, game over. Let's go to the locker room, take a shower, drink beers. I got Tyler Lockett third.
Fourth.
Obviously, fourth, yes. Facing a tough New York Giants defense, but I do like it better than Thielen, even though we know Arizona plays a strong cover game, cover 3, and they primarily have been taking out the number 1s. But that being said, and Thielen would be the number 2, but I still think Jefferson goes off in this matchup. I mean, they have a lot of safety blitzes built into their defensive scheme. Arizona does as well, and so just think if they do a safety blitz and Jefferson's on the outside, he's just gonna go, and boom, there's a touchdown, right? So Cousins is gonna hesitate. He's just gonna launch that thing. So yeah, that's why I got Thielen in the 4th spot.
I like the analysis.
5th spot, excuse me. So that's where I am.
Lennon.
All right, yeah, I was I went with Waddle first as well in this group.
Naturally.
You were
Because,
sold.
I have him.
I sold him on it.
So-
I am in sales. It's what I do.
Well, I have him, so I was happy to see that. So I appreciate the
Not
hot
biased
take.
at all.
So Waddle, number 1. Number 2, I went with Michael Pittman. I think, it is obviously the quarterback change, but Matt Ryan has been freaking horrible. So I don't know how much worse it can get. So I'm betting on the talent there. Number 3, I went with Lockett. With DK being gone, I think he's going to get a little more looks, even though it's against a tough defense in the Giants. Then I went with Devonta. He's the roller coaster. He's calling Mr. Six Flags around here. He's just up and down and up and down. So,
it's not Six Flags. That's Cedar Point, baby. America's roller coaster.
Cedar Point's
You
great.
guys
All right,
don't know anything
Cedar
about
Point.
Cedar Point, though.
I've been
No idea.
I've been there.
I've heard of it. I'm not I'm not a roller coaster guy.
America's
so,
roller coaster. America's roller coaster. That's what they call it.
Yep.
And then I went with Thielen last in that group. He's an old man out there. Jefferson's gonna just rip it up this week.
My shit.
All right, great. Well, we'll see how we
The original
do.
Landon. Jeez.
I'll also pull
Good picks.
Fantasy Pros consensus just to see how we do against the experts.
The experts. We're experts.
and
We have a podcast.
Any of our viewers. I'm excited to see what Roland's puts our one viewer. All right, let's look at week 7.
Forced
We
to
had
watch
like
the-
58
forced to
viewers.
watch the show. He's forced to watch the show because he's the
He loves it. He is so happy watching this.
poor guy.
All right, we're going to start with his team. First place, Crispy. Beats, add more bench spots. Jeff with Hopkins back and looking good, and Jacobs and Eckler having fantasy breaking seasons. Does anyone have a chance of stopping Roland's team?
Man, I don't think so.
Assuming health
Honestly.
is not an issue.
Yeah, I don't think so. Like this guy's rolling. I mean, Eckler has scored the most points over the last 4 weeks across all fantasy football players except for one. Do you guys know who that is?
Josh Allen.
Jacobs?
No. It is Joe Burrow, number 1.
Oh.
And then Jacobs has the 4th most fantasy points across the last 4 weeks. So, I mean, you look at that. He's got number 1 and number 4 on his team. He's just putting up points every single week. It's just hard to like. There's just so few guys that are able to put up these massive numbers like this. And then there's just very few weaknesses that I see. I mean, there's a few. Kyler Murray is certainly one question mark on his team, but it's not terrible when you look at the overall landscape of the rest of the QB position.
Yep.
And then Sutton probably being the other one. But again, it's serviceable enough to, he's not the wide receiver 2 maybe that he drafted him as. Now, I mean, I guess Hopkins has moved into that wide receiver 2 role, but he's maybe in the 1 at this point. But, he's still a serviceable flex for him. So, no, I don't see anybody beating him at this point.
Me neither. If he stays
Way to
healthy.
go, Roland.
I'm just reverse jinxing him. If he stays healthy, this team is unstoppable.
He might not lose again this. Yeah, I don't.
No, he won't lose ever.
He can't.
Admore, a little bit of tough luck. He had the 5th most points, which is in this weekend, which is pretty good considering Brady sucked. Amon left the game pretty early.
I'll say this for Chris, though. Really quick. I'm sorry. I wanted to add this in, though.
No, that's every week.
I know. I always do this every single
No,
week. I know. I'm
It's the Jeff
sorry.
special. I love it.
Yeah. You gotta it should just be like drink a beer every time Jeff interrupts with something, right? But he should probably look up at backing up like Eckler at least for sure. I mean, Sony Michel is a primary backup, right? Handcuff a little bit to protect himself. If he truly wants to maybe make.
My guess is his thinking is
Naheem Hines. Isn't he Naheem Hines? Isn't he on his team? I thought he was.
No, he has so many running backs. That's the only thing I could think is he has better running backs than the backup Chargers running back is going to end up being. So
yeah, no, I get that. I get that. But if Eckler goes down, man, that's a huge loss to this team. I'm just saying.
Sure, but he has Jacobs, and Jacobs is, unbelievable. And
Right now, he's got two guys that are eclipsing 20 points every single week.
Landon, for Bino's team, he has Etienne, who is now Robinson free. He did well against a good Giants defense. I'm going to give you some running back names. You tell me which ones you would rather take over Etienne.
For the rest of the season, I would assume?
Yes.
Okay.
For the rest of the season, would you take this player over Etienne? Mixon.
I would still go Mixon with that one, especially with my boy Jamar Chase being out. So, yeah, I'd go Mixon there.
Pierce.
I would go Etienne over Pierce.
Okay, Fournette.
I wouldn't.
I would go Etienne over Fournette. I think Rashad White's going to play more and more. And I would go Etienne there as well.
Okay.
Who was the last
I agree
one?
with you.
That. Who was the last one? Sorry.
Stevenson?
Oh, yeah, Stevenson.
Yeah, Stevenson. Yeah. Stevenson's great, but he's got to deal with Damian Harris. So, yeah, I'd go Etienne.
Man, I got checked last week. God, I hate that.
I know.
I knew that. I freaking knew that was going to happen. I'm going to explain it when it comes to my matchup. I'm so pissed.
Second place, Fender lost to BJV, who has been on fire. Jeff, BJV has won 3 in a row.
Yeah.
Jonathan Taylor only got him 12 points. But starting this week, Taylor is going to have a new QB that we kind of briefly talked about when we were talking about Pittman in Sam Ellinger, I believe is how you pronounce it.
Yep.
He sounds like more of a threat to run than to pass. But does Taylor's usage and fantasy output increase with the change in QB?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think Frank Reich, the coach of the Indianapolis Colts, is probably looking at more at his jobs on the line here a little bit. Like maybe he's feeling a little bit of pressure, a little bit of a hot seat. So, if anything, I don't think it's because of Ellinger that his production goes up. I think it's because Frank Reich realizes, hey, I got to get my best players involved. I'm going to win games at this point. And if Jonathan Taylor's healthy, then he's got to send him out there. He's got to be the workhorse that we all want him to be in fantasy. I mean, Ellinger's not a guy that can go out there and just like spin it. You know, the reason he's kind of being brought in is because he can pick up first downs with his legs. So, yes, maybe there will be some 3rd and 5s, 3rd and 4s sort of things that, Taylor probably wouldn't have got the ball. Maybe he would have got a check down in the flats or something like that. But Taylor's production can only go up if they stay on the field longer. And that's what Ellinger is being brought in to hopefully be able to do is extend drives with his legs, pick up first downs. And so if he's able to do that, then Taylor's production goes up.
Yep, I like it. Landon, similar to Bino, Fender ran into a high-scoring opponent, but had a decent week this week. Fender's roster decisions. I'm going to open up the bench so we can see. He started Gallup, who got 0 points, and Alec Pierce, who got 5.2 over Juju and Gus Edwards. So
that's probably my fault. That's probably my fault. I kind of wanted to ask him, because I said last week, I'm like, man, I would have started Juju. I think that's a bad match. I also said, I kind of like Gallup this week, and so I was pretty wrong on both.
Landon, my question to you was: Is Fender unlucky that he ran into a high-scoring opponent, or is he just a bad manager? So it sounds like maybe Jeff is the bad manager.
Yeah, I don't know if we're giving good advice here.
Yeah.
But leaving all those points on the bench, I like to call that a G-off move. So, but obviously it's hindsight's 20/20. But you look back, and Juju was coming off a big game prior to last week. So in week 6, he had 21.8 points. But it's tough with the Kansas City wide receivers. But Gallup to this point has done nothing since coming back. He had one game where he had a touchdown, but he still only had like 20-something yards or something like that. So I think Gallup at this point, I could see you shouldn't play Gallup until he can prove that he is capable of having a decent game. But
I think part of that's Dak, though, too, like getting kind of back into things after being off so long. Don't you think? I mean, maybe wanted to get in.
But that was only one game with Dak.
I know. It was his first game back.
Before that.
Yeah,
but Gallup hasn't performed since being back.
Yeah, he's had like 3 bad games. But I mean, the Edwards thing, I could maybe see not playing Edwards in his first game back. But he should have went with the Juju over the Gallup machine.
Yeah, seriously. All right, next matchup. Barn burner. Walter has 2 wins this year. Both wins he's gotten scoring well under 100 points. So lucky, and
He'll get a third this week.
Bryden's team suffered the worst injury.
That's a cough, but thank you.
If not more than one. More than one injury. He lost Hall for the season, who had really skyrocketed him up to the top of the standings, and Metcalf, we talked about, was got injured as well. Andrews left Thursday night's game tonight, so he's not starting this week off very well either. Trying to remember what my question was here.
Basically, what does Bryden need to do to keep his season alive? And you got to start selling off assets at this point, man. You got Josh Allen out there. You're just going to be rolling him out like every single week and hope that he gets you enough points to I don't see this team putting up more than 100 in any given week, like given some of the players at this point. Like if Andrews continues to stay out and we got Metcalf out, so you gotta look to maybe make some trades here, make some moves if you wanna stay in this thing. You got to work the wire, but I don't like the trajectory of this team whatsoever. From first to worst, I think by the end of the season, he's going to miss the playoffs.
Man, it's getting hot.
Yeah, seriously. I hope Bryden is watching right now. Landon, for Walter, he has Najee and Montgomery, who at least Najee was a high draft pick. A lot of dollars spent in our auction draft on him. Montgomery is as well. Both of them are underperforming. Najee, I think, is in that sort of top tier of busts this year. Strategy-wise, what can you do?
Guys, take a drink of beer. Take a drink of beer really quick or whatever. Woo. Cam Akers. It'll be. I know.
45 minutes later, he's gonna be like, "I changed my QB ranking."
It'll be interesting if Cam Akers gets traded, though, because that would be a boost to this team if Cam Akers does go to a different team to where they might see a little bit more value in him. Not saying he's going to be anything, but that would be interesting. So, I don't know, we'll see. Go on.
Proceed.
Landon, what do you do when you have high-profile players, whatever position? I'm dealing with Pitts. He's dealing with Najee and a little bit of Montgomery. What do you do when you have those players? Are you stuck with them? Do you play them because you know that they have the talent and they'll get there, or what's the strategy?
What I would personally try to do is do a little package trade. So it's going to be very difficult to do, trade Najee for anyone 1-for-1 at this point. Najee is garbage, as we like to say around here. Looking at his team, he's got CeeDee Lamb and T. Higgins as a solid 1-2 wide receiver. So maybe he can move a Lockett, like package a Lockett with a Najee to get, another decent running back.
I don't 2 assets to gain 1? Like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, Najee's not really an asset right now. He's like, there's no ceiling to that guy.
I understand that, but you can't. There's a thing in the stock market, right? That you don't sell when something's low. You're not selling off assets when they're low.
So what's your strategy?
Yeah, what do you
got to ride this out. Unfortunately, this is it. Like this.
You don't try to improve your team.
You got to some offers out there. You can throw the guy on the bench, but you can't just trade him off because you're going to get pennies for the dollar on this guy.
But that's why you package him with someone like a Lockett
so you're
or
going to
a
get 2
McLaurin.
assets to gain 1. Like there's no way
you can always a wide receiver. You can get a wide receiver.
You're losing depth, and in the way our structure, the way our league is set up, with 2 wide receivers, and then you have 2 flex spots with wide receiver or running back. He's giving up 2 of those pieces that are potentially starters to gain 1. He's not going to make up even if Najee is only getting 11 points a game and Lockett's getting 10 to 20, or let's say 10 to 15, he's not going to get back a guy that's making 25 points every single week. I'm not going to trade him Cooper Kupp,
But you're missing a couple things. One, you're missing that he's opening up a roster spot. So you can't just say this one player has to match 2 players that are losing. It's this one player plus the bench spot I have, or the player I pick up on waivers will make up or do better than the 2 players I have.
Sure, but look at our waiver wire. It's pretty picked over. I mean, I know we're only a 10-team league. There are people out there, but then you're really like that's more of a crapshoot, I think, than trying to go with the guy that you know is going to get 15 touches every single week.
I mean, I think we
All
talked
you're
about
asking for is one of them to
earlier.
be on the goal line.
We talked earlier this season about how you had to have at least one of those spots on your bench where you can churn and burn and
I like
be able to
that.
pick up.
Yes.
Right. And so you call it that. You get rid of those two spots and you've created one that's a churn and burn rather than not being able to do that. Landon, my problem with what you're saying is I don't think anybody is taking those two players for any talent that's above that. Maybe if DK misses a bunch of time, then Lockett is good. But otherwise, no one's taken those two crap players.
Yeah, maybe you have someone that's holding on to hope that Najee is going to turn into what you just got to throw some offers out there. But I don't think Walter's that type of manager to be.
No, he's more of the,
so,
I have a fantasy team.
Yeah, wait a second. I thought the season was over. I would try and move him. That's me personally.
Yeah. No, I hear you. Next match up.
You got to move
Big
Chubb.
Tasty.
You got to sell Chubb, man. You got to sell Chubb high.
That's, I think,
much
a
as
good
you
strategy. Get a couple players there.
You can get two
Big Tasty.
decent assets to throw. You could probably get a Sanders and I don't know whoever some other throw in or something like that for.
Well, I've offered him. I don't remember which. I've offered him two players, but they were both receivers. Big Tasty took up to my underperforming I Quit Pits. Jeff, for my team, injuries to Njoku and Mike Williams, combined with just such fun underperforming, have done great. I do have CMC. Yeah. So let's talk about him. What can you tell us about what you
Williams
saw?
Williams expected to miss 4 weeks now. That's yikes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk.
CMC. So moving forward, this seems like a great fit. Ed Caffrey having played with the Shanahan-based offense before, so he's familiar with the Bay Area, having played in Stafford. CMC obviously was built for this offense with an outside zone running scheme. But that being said, we've seen how injuries do affect this backfield with the way that they play this outside zone scheme, and that would certainly be a little bit of a concern with CMC. If he can stay healthy, I do see him as being able to just thrive in this system, and I think it's going to take away from the likes of Deebo Samuel that we thought was going to have those 5 touches a game as a running back, and he was going bananas. Now they don't need to see that. I think also San Francisco has given up a lot of draft capital, and they're going to want to show off their shiny new toy a little bit and go out there and play with it. So I do look at him to have some success early and often. And I actually kind of was banking on him to maybe get out there and have a touchdown. Because I figured he'd come into the offense, he wouldn't play much. He didn't, he had to learn the system. But everybody kind of knows how to we have a goal line package, run for the end zone, boom, hit this hole or whatever it is, right? So he can do that. So I kind of was banking on him to get a touchdown last week against Kansas City, but that didn't happen. And then, so that's really where I am. I do think he's going to have a lot of success if he can stay healthy, but I am kind of wondering what this means for the rest of the offense around San Francisco at the same time.
Yeah, no, it'll be interesting. And Deebo's injured, so we'll see if that impacts him at all. Landon, for Moreau's team, 2 questions for you. 1, Herbert's on bye this week, but then he's back, and as Jeff mentioned, he's not going to have Mike Williams for at least 4 weeks. We expect him to have Keenan. Herbert's underperformed thus far. Do you expect sort of similar output, better or worse, with the switching of the receivers?
I'm going with better, and it's just when you look at his schedule coming up, it's pretty nice. There's a lot of green on the old phone there, which is green. you like to see those green matchups. So 5 of his next.
They don't do that on the desktop.
Yeah, it is a little interesting.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's all right. So 5 of the next 7 games of his, he's going against the 1st, the 2nd, the 3rd, the 5th, and the 7th best possible matchups currently against quarterbacks. So, and obviously that's a really, very good thing. And Keenan Allen is a huge part of this offense, and you can make the argument he's maybe more important than the bigger Mike Williams, the more touchdown, big play type of guy, where Keenan Allen can maybe keep the chains moving more and keep them on the field. And I think he's going to have a good second half. I'm hoping he is. I have him in my other league.
And second question, we know Jeff doesn't think much of Toney, at least for this year. Moreau has both MVS and Kelsey. Do you expect any impact to either of them from Toney this season, and which one?
The obvious answer is Kelsey's going to be fine. He's just going to keep doing what he does. But yes, I think every other receiver is going to be affected, assuming obviously Toney can be healthy. I think Toney will have an impact on MVS, on Juju. Sky Moore is non-existent at this point, but negative stock is going down for MVS and Juju after this move.
All right. Next matchup, the thriller. Landon beat Jeff's team pretty handily. Landon, as you mentioned earlier, Jeff left a hell of a bunch of points on his bench. It could have been the difference, although it's pretty reasonable that he chose the right players.
That's what's upsetting. That's what's so disappointing. I mean, Harris, I was talking about this earlier, though. I knew I got Belichick. I knew he's probably healthy, but Belichick probably just said, like, we're going to throw him out there, he does this. He tries to play mind games with the other teams, right? So, like, the other teams, like, all of a sudden, like, oh, they got Harris back. We got to watch out for that guy, too. So now they're spending their time on a film study looking at what Harris can do. And instead of, like, paying more attention to what, like, maybe Ramondre does when he was a primary ball carrier out there, I just think that's why he does that type of stuff. That's just my opinion. I don't know, but he's a smart man, clearly. He obviously wins a lot, so there's a reason. But anyways, that being said, I got Belichick. I did. Like, I knew that this guy was not going to have much of a role going into his first week back. I just knew it. And so the fact that I put him in there, the fact that I didn't start freaking Eno Benjamin, when I knew he was going to have a day. Like, coming off an 8-point week, I just knew I could feel that going against the Saints, and I didn't do it because I was worried about Swift. And I got the news Swift was out, so then I had to pull him out of my lineup. And now all of a sudden I'm struggling. I still thought I was going to get the win. I suck.
Landon, does Jeff suck?
Yep, absolutely.
All right. Jeff, for Landon's team, what is happening with Lamar? I don't know the update on this week's game, but Lamar's had bad output the last few weeks. Is that just a case of bad receivers and health, or what's happening?
Well, yeah, there's actually a little bit going on here, in my opinion. So this could be the result of injuries, no doubt. I mean, their top three skill positions, as we know, are all guys that are dealing with injuries right now: Bateman, Andrews, and then not only. I mean, yeah, both are RBs as far as Dobbins and Edwards, right? So they can't get maybe any consistency or continuity to go along with this right now. Bateman's snap share, has been down. He hasn't eclipsed like 66% in the last 5 games. So, these are all just part of the reasons why I think that maybe they can't get anything going there. He hasn't really had much success throwing the ball. Through the air, no TDs through the air we haven't seen, and I think, what is it? It's like something like 4 touchdowns, maybe. I think. I gotta look it up, but yeah, that's what it is. I'll interrupt you guys when I get the stat that I want to share, and we'll just take it.
All right. Well, we're done looking at week 7. Before we move on, Jeff, do you want to tell us what your penalty is for losing Pick'em this week?
Again.
Yeah, jeez. So I'm going to do the saltine challenge that was on the list.
Oh, nice.
That's a cracker tier. I
so how many do you have to eat?
I believe it's 6 saltines in a minute.
All right, I'll keep track of time.
Yeah, somebody's got to throw.
Tell me when you're ready.
Roland's got to play some funky music during this.
Yeah, should I mute I'm going to mute this.
The most awkward 1 minute.
You're going to hear me chopping. Like, I'm going to sound like.
Let me know when you're. How many did you say? 5 or 6?
And a garbage disposal here. No, it's a 1 minute, 6 saltines. So.
All right, tell me when I should start.
I'm going to throw in 7 just for good measure. That's the type of guy I am. Let's see, we got 4.
Such a stand-up guy, this guy.
He's gonna think of his.
I'm looking at this list. Though. This is like really one of the remaining few that.
I know we'll have to add to it now.
Oh my gosh! Got any? Hey, all of our fans out there, if you got any suggestions for maybe what a good penalty might be, feel free to email us at the fantasyinception@gmail.com, and we'll be happy to throw them on the board.
All right.
Cool.
You ready?
You want me to mute this, or you want to hear me munching?
No.
I want to hear you munch it.
You want to hear me?
Here we go.
All right, here we go.
All right, I got the clock. I'll update. That's
It's
one.
already sticking.
Landon, how many do you think you got?
I'm going to go with 4.
All right, he's at 2. We're at 45 seconds.
Very dry.
This is 3. I hope he didn't bring any water and he just struggles through the rest of this.
Got beers.
We are at 30 seconds. 4.
Oh,
I
boy.
mean, I don't know if it's really four. He hasn't swallowed. He hasn't
Yeah,
swallowed.
you have to, like, you have to swallow, don't you?
I
They're
know.
all just in his mouth. 20 seconds left. You're so close. 10 seconds.
No.
5,
Not getting it.
4, 3, 2, 1. That was a good effort. I
It was
liked
very
it.
good. I think we'll go with 2.5.
Yeah.
You still got quite a bit in that mouth of yours there.
There's like
Wait,
there's
should
4
we-
crackers. There's 4 crackers in my mouth right now.
Jeff, do you want to give us your wide receiver cornerback info, or should we look at some week 8 stuff first?
Go to week 8 stuff now.
That's what I do. All right, give me 1 second. I'll get that up.
Nice effort,
Hang on,
Geoff.
I
might
got
go to you.
crumbs all over the computer here.
All right, let me update this. Where's Waze? So we're just gonna. This is slow as shit. Oh my god! All right.
Here, let me
Let
just
us
jump into
look
mine.
Whoa.
All right, go ahead.
Oh,
Sorry,
you wanna do
I
your
was
thing?
wondering if I can. Yeah, I can really quick. So,
No.
He's interrupting again.
yep, a couple upgrades that I really like this week. So, let's talk about Hill and Waddle going against Detroit. I mean, we got good matchups for both guys. One's going against Jeff Okudah. I mean, they're gonna mix and mingle around. One's going against Jeff Okudah, and then Anumi Amaware out of the slot. He's led in 3 touchdowns in his covers this year. Okudah has led up a 71% catch rate. You know, it doesn't matter like what these guys do this week. Miami, they're just going to have a field day, I think, against Detroit. Detroit is going to have to play cover 3 to have help over the top in order to keep up with these guys. Otherwise, if they're playing man coverage, which they like, this surprised me. I looked this up, but it surprised me to see that Detroit actually plays man coverage 55% of the time. So actually more than they play zone. So if they try to do that against Miami, they are going to get torched, right? So I look for them to play a lot more zone this week to try to contain, if you will, those 2 guys. I couldn't even tell you which one's going to have the better game, though, the 2. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, you know, it's one of those things where you hope to see a shootout here because we talked about it a little bit earlier. Either guy could have a big day, but if they're up big, they're just going to run the ball in the second half. So I'd be careful of that. But they're going against Levi Wallace, 15.6 yards per catch, and Arthur Mollett, 16.1 yards per catch. Mollett also lets up an 82% catch rate out of the slot. So primarily I like the guy playing out of the slot in that matchup. We talked a little bit about Pittman. We talked a little bit. Yeah, I got a little bit more cracker there. Pittman going against Washington this week, playing against Kendall Fuller. Kendall Fuller out of the slot has allowed 3 touchdowns in his coverage, so I like that a lot. Wan'Dale Robinson, I mentioned this earlier, going against Kobe, and Kobe's averaging 13.8 yards per catch out of the slot. He has seen 13 targets over the last 2 weeks with 8 receptions going against him. So let's go ahead and fire that guy up. And then another matchup I really like this week is CeeDee Lamb, primarily out of the slot, going against Kyler Gordon for the Bears. He has led up an 80% catch rate, and it's also a short week, coming off of a really big game for the Bears. So emotions were probably running high, going to have a little time to prep going in this week. I just expect CeeDee Lamb to feast. Yeah. And then some downgrades that I have here. Let's get into it. All right. Stephon Diggs. Obviously, you're going to start him. But I do see a potential downgrade. I do believe Jair Alexander is going to shadow him in this game. He's one of the top corners in the league, so there's no denying that Stephon Diggs can burn him at any second. But I do believe that maybe you should just lower expectations a little bit this week with what you normally expect, right? Tyler Boyd. Somebody that we all think is going to have a big week now that we're not going to see any Jamar Chase, right? He's going against Greg Newsome out of the slot, who has only around 2 receptions over the past 5 games. 5 games. So I do not expect Tyler Boyd to have a very successful week this week. But, better things are probably to come. Marvin Jones will most likely line up against Surtain against that Denver defense. Probably not. Christian Kirk will be out of the slot, so I doubt Surtain would travel into the slot area. But I do believe Surtain will most likely shadow in that matchup. And then I don't like any of the wide receivers this week for Pittsburgh, whether it be Johnson, Pickens, Claypool. We've talked about this so many times, every single week. That Philadelphia secondary is brutal. So Darius Slay, Maddox, Bradbury primarily out of the slot. He's the slot guy, but it's not good. There you go.
Yep. Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah.
All right, let me share the screen again.
Hahndо's Huddle.
All right.
Brought to you by.
Eat a cracker.
No. About to ask you a question. Jeff, Landon right now has Mooney as his wide receiver 2. He's got Kirk briefly touched on. Before that, which one would you start? I didn't mean for eating a cracker.
Yeah, sorry. No, I like Kirk.
Okay, that's what I thought. Landon, you're not going to give any advice to Chris. Jeff, for Chris.
It doesn't matter.
I don't think there's any
I'm not winning
here. Yeah, I got no questions here. Who wins this one?
I had it. I thought I'm crispy. I had it. I felt good about my team actually before, losing Chase. So
Chase,
that kind of hurts.
Are you taking?
He did his business last week, so you got what you needed.
You got Chris wins?
Yeah.
Chris wins.
Yeah, I agree. Next matchup.
It's the end of the season, boys. A little hope I had.
Join us.
You were in first there for
Matt's
a while, right?
Second place. Yeah, first few weeks. Matt's team versus Brighton's. Both of them had underperforming players start on Thursday. Let's look at the bench spots. Landon, would you play Gallup, who Matt currently has in his second flex, or would you, let's say Debo's out, would you play any of Brian Robinson, London, Pierce?
Yeah, I would probably go with Brian Robinson there in that sitch.
Okay.
I think he's going to get a lot of touches. Drake London's pretty much unplayable at this point. And Pierce, you got to give that a week with the new quarterback. So, yeah, I'd go Brian Robinson there.
Okay. Jeff, for Bryden's team, would you play Hines, who he currently has as his second flex, or would you play, let's say Metcalf doesn't play, would you play Woods? Would you play Rondale Moore? Either of those guys over Hines?
Yeah, I mean, Woods would be my preferred, but let's keep an eye on Tannehill, I guess.
Okay.
If Tannehill doesn't go, then I'd probably look for Rondale Moore.
Okay. Who wins this one?
Yeah, I like Olave can stay. This team's going to be really interesting, especially if they trade Jerry Jeudy from Denver. I've heard
I don't see that happening.
I don't either, but if it happens.
Yeah, sure. Len, we lost him.
Yeah.
I'm going to say Matt's team as well.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Matt's team as well.
All right. I wonder what Landon's doing.
No, I'm looking at my phone at the matchup. Sorry. I'm not.
Sure.
It's hard for him to look at the matchups on the screen. He's mentioned this before last week.
Thank you. It's
Maybe
easier
get a
for me on my
computer.
phone.
Maybe just get a computer.
I need to get some dual. I got to get a triple monitor.
Landon, for Bino, do you play Waller if he plays, or would you stick with Hill, the bullshit tight end that's not a tight end?
Yeah, I hate that.
Yeah, that is a little crap shit. I'd go with Hill.
Doesn't even play tight end. Like, why is it designation as tight end in Yahoo? Doesn't even play tight end.
Here's a more interesting one. He has Gabe Davis on the bench. Bino does. Pollard's going to be without Zeke. Etienne is going against Denver's D. Do you play Gabe Davis over either of those guys, or an Amon who is come back?
You don't play him over Pollard, that's for sure. Oh
No,
man,
Pollard stays
lock him in
there.
there. This is what you picked him up for. This is the game you've been hoping for.
Would you stick with Etienne against Denver's solid D?
Etienne, he's getting every touch.
Or Gabe
This
Davis.
question is to Lennon.
Yeah, I would
Put
stick
another
with.
cracker in your mouth.
I would stick with the lineup that he has currently. I think it's the best option there.
Jeff, for Moreau's team, he doesn't have any questions. Who wins this one?
I like add more bench spots. I think he's got a really good matchup this week.
Yeah,
Lennon?
agree.
Cool. Next matchup. Which one are we on now?
I agree with you.
My Stinky Pits against BJB. Fucking Godwin.
You're gonna drop Pitts? I mean, he's toast. He's not.
I was so close today. Who would you, Jeff? Who would you start? Herbert against Dallas or James Robinson, who just switched teams?
Yeah, I'm going to have to go Herbert in this one. I don't think Robinson will be. Like, do you think Jacksonville knew that they were going to trade Robinson? That they were floating him out there, and that's why he didn't get the run last week? That
Kind of think so, yeah.
Yeah. Because I thought it was more of an injury-related thing. Like, when I was looking at my fantasy scores, right? Like, didn't know anything was going on, But I knew he was questionable going into the week. But,
Landon, I imagine you have to stick with Burrow against Cleveland, even without Chase. Tua is going against Detroit.
Yeah.
He's got
Herbert looks really good out there.
Do you stay with Burrow?
Yeah, I don't know how you not. But, yeah, both those guys. Tua's got a great matchup. But, I'd stick with Burrow, and he's got the Boyd stack. So, yeah, I'd stick with Burrow.
Give me Tua. I'll take a little Tua over Burrow this week.
Oh, interesting. You are full of the hot takes today. You're like a chef.
BJV wins this one? Yes.
Yep, sorry.
No, it's okay. And then last place teams go against each other. Jeff and Walter. Landon will make these questions to you.
Well, the answer is Walter's going to win.
No, Jeff. Which QB do you think Jeff is waiting to pick up? Is it Andy Dalton? Is it who else is there?
I actually had a waiver wire bid out for Daniel Jones, so that was disappointed to see Walter pick him up.
Who do you think he goes with? Is it Goff? Then
yeah, I'm looking. Yeah, I would say my bet would be Jared Goff. Yes,
Jared Goff. All right, and then for Walter's team. Do you play McLaurin without Dots in there, or do you stick with Najee?
Was that question to me?
This is the week Najee goes off because he's playing against. I'm telling you right now.
I don't expect Jeff to.
This is what happened.
Oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't paying attention.
McLaurin with Dotson not there, or do you stick with Najee against Philly's D?
Let's go with McLaurin.
All right, who wins this one?
I'm going to go with Walter.
I'm going to say Jeff.
Oh my god! I told you this last week. Every time I pick myself to win the matchup, I lose. So I'm just going with the other team. Dan's all stars. Let's go, man.
There we go. All right, I think that does it for this week. Please email us or comment with your Rankum teams if you want to be involved next week. And
smash that like button, hit that subscribe. Let's go. Fantasy Inception. Peace.